Hey, before we get started, I just want to say thank you to all the people who recently signed up to my Patreon, Subscribestar, donated via one-time donation on Venmo or PayPal. It's unbelievable the support I've been getting lately, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of you have been waiting for this video where I discuss what went on when I debated the YouTuber and Debate Me Bro and former Twitcher because he was banned off of Twitch, Vaush, and I'm going to get into that. But first, I want to talk about why it is important to debate and why it is not important to debate. And we're going to start with why it's not important to debate. Now, obviously, nothing was learned during the course of this debate. Nothing was said that moved either person on any of their positions. I was not compelled by any of the arguments put forward by Vaush because, for the most part, he wasn't making arguments. He showed up to this debate in an attempt to make himself appear to be smart. That's why throughout the course of this debate, he tried to work in a lot of big words that made him sound intelligent, even though a lot of the big words that he was trying to work in were in fact not words. That's why throughout the course of the debate, he was trying to talk really fast, even though while he was talking really fast, he wasn't actually saying anything. At no point during the debate did he try to understand and counter the points that I was bringing up. He was just trying to get his points out there. And there were points during the debate where I would pause him. I would tell him exactly what he was saying because he was accusing me of not understanding what he was saying, and then try to move on to what I was saying, and he never once did the same for me. He never steel-manned a single position that I brought up. Every time we started talking about criminal justice or any topic in particular, he would always pivot to something else in order to avoid the topic. A perfect example of this was a dispute over the Georgia law in the earlier portion of the debate, the criminal justice portion of the debate, where I was telling him he was just factually misrepresenting what the Georgia law was. And instead of addressing my point, he decided to ask what my qualifications were, only to find out that I hold 2 degrees in criminal justice, which must have been incredibly embarrassing for someone who pretended to have a criminal justice background. Like, it's not something that is exclusionary.
It's not a protection, it's a limitation. It's saying that you don't have a legal right to commit
protection.
It says you don't have a legal right to commit a citizen's arrest. Okay, I can't argue. Do you have like a legal degree?
My background is in criminal justice. I don't like to bring up credentials because they're worth nothing in an online discussion that isn't really about anything and was never intended to be productive in the first place. But when you're trying to say that you are educated on criminal justice and you don't know the first thing about criminal justice, that American law and laws in other former British colonies gets its roots from English common law, then you're clearly not educated in the subject that you're talking about, and your background in criminal justice didn't cover somehow the first thing about criminal justice in the United States of America.
The law for citizens' arrests necessitates that the people conducting the arrest need to have actually witnessed the crime for which they would be arresting the other citizen. Okay, I've reviewed this pretty thoroughly just to make sure there's no henpecking on it. Like, if you're just going to outright deny the existence of this law and the effect that it has on the case.
Of the law. I'm telling you what the purpose of the law was. And again, it's one thing for you to claim expertise in a subject and literally not know the first thing about that subject, but for you to then accuse me of denying the existence of a law that you are in fact misquoting, saying that the law requires you to see something in action and then describe the incident that apparently, according to you, nobody saw, when there's video of somebody seeing it and the law specifically says see a crime in action or have immediate knowledge of that crime, then we're delving into the completely absurd. But again, I'm jumping way too far ahead because I'm talking about what made the debate not worth it, which is the substance and the argument and the idea that this changed anybody's mind. But I'm not talking about what did make it worth it, and I want to go over that before I go into the details of the debate. And don't worry, it's a short explanation, it won't take long. In fact, I can pretty much explain it in one sentence. This debate was incredibly financially successful for me, and I'm sure it was for Vaush, and that's the entire point of these debates. In fact, it's what I suspected the entire point of these debates were, and I now have confirmed it because the number of donations that came in during that stream, and you can go back and watch it and watch me read all or most of them because I had to cover one, which is a whole other thing for another day, were absurd. The idea that nothing being said for about 2.5 hours is worth the amount of money that you guys pledged to support this event is an absurdity on top of the previous absurdity. Now, I previously described Vaush as someone who was selling communism on the internet on his YouTube channel, but in reality, he is fulfilling a very specific need from the former skeptic community all the way throughout the right-wing community, and that is the need for debates. If you remember in 2016, 2017, a lot of people who were right of center were demanding debates with left-wing figures, and those figures were refusing to engage in those debates. Remember, a lot of people wanted to have Francesca Ramsey on, Riley J. Dennis, all of these figures who have fallen out of favor on the internets because either they don't make content anymore or people don't care about the content that they make anymore. Vaush is somebody whose entire channel exists to fill that role. That's what he does. He doesn't do other content. Not really. He has some gaming stuff here and there, but in reality, all he does is challenge people to these debates, put on a big show, and rake in the super chat money. And I know this sounds like I'm insulting him, and to him, it's probably an insult because the guy's a communist, but in reality, it's a great business model. In fact, the reason I participated in the debate is because I thought it would be a financial windfall for me, and it definitely was. Look, I know the standard line on YouTube that you get from most content creators is that they're this holier-than-thou figure who never does anything based on a financial motivation, despite the fact that all of the changes in their channel specifically align with what is more financially viable. But we're all adults here, or you guys out in the audience I expect to be adults, or mature enough to understand things like Santa Claus isn't real. People do things for financial motivation. The Debate Me Bro format is a huge moneymaker. As soon as it's not a giant moneymaker, people will move on from the Debate Me Bro format because there's nothing to be gained in terms of conversation from that. There's no additional value in that except for meme generating clips or ridiculous moments. And those ridiculous moments aren't really worth anything when they stop becoming worth anything. I mean, just think about how angry this guy was throughout the course of the entire debate and after the debate, despite me never doing anything remotely close to inducing that level of a response. The only videos that I made about him previously were a video where I talked about a guest that he had on his program, another video where I responded and I included the fact that he didn't know what single-payer healthcare was, which he factually did not know what it was, and another video where I talked about his bad take on South Park, which was really a video about South Park that was just set up with his bad take to respond to. I wasn't cutting back and forth between clips, shaming him repeatedly. In fact, by the end of the video, I was talking crap about Seth MacFarlane and his weak lack of conviction. And yet, as soon as he left the stream, which by the way, he left the stream after I asked him a question, which I prefaced with he didn't have to answer because it was a lightly personal question and I didn't want him to feel uncomfortable, he immediately went to talking crap. And he left the stream so it could be this big power move. I just left him in the middle of a sentence. Ain't I this cool internet tough guy? But immediately, as soon as he goes to his audience, I'm the stupidest person he ever talked to. I'm somebody who's the most bad faith that he's ever talked to. Because, you know, you have to load up on the hyperbole, and people should flag my channel so that they take down the video.
That dude is so bad faith. Jesus Christ. That was a dick move. Oh yeah, I owe that guy a tremendous amount of respect after that conversation. Jesus Christ. All these conservative arguments boil down to there was no racism. I feel like that guy was probably dog whistling. Is it weird I found him more reasonable than you? Yeah, Hans Flemmenwerfer, it probably should be, considering that guy was legitimately one of the stupidest people I've ever actually talked to. That was actually really impressive. It was actually, like, astonishing to me. Every time he opened his mouth, he said something stupid. I was lucky at any point to have, like, I'm lucky to have been able to correct him on anything. Because every single fucking time that guy opened his mouth, he had, like, some new wildly fucking stupid thing to say. Also, yes, you can cancel me. I don't think that guy has autism. I just think he's stupid and cocky.
Now, what was my grave offense that made me the worst of the worst? Me laughing at his coconut analogy, me steelmanning him multiple times throughout the debate, repeating his position to him verbatim, despite him never doing that for me at any point during the debate. Me pointing out that it's just not as clever as the left wing thinks it is for them to throw around terms like triggered that nobody on the right has really used since 2015, because it's a technique that the left has adopted, and I pointed out that they've adopted it after seeing it so many times on the Young Turks. I guess I should have got into a shouting match with him over that instead of accurately describing exactly what he was doing in order to engage in a pointless shouting match with me. I mean, honestly, where was the bad faith from my end? Because if you look at this objectively, he was the one jumping around on topics. He was the one who was dodging questions that I put forward, and I was trying to engage with his ideas. Even though I knew that this is his business model and he's not interested in a conversation, I still gave him the chance. I gave him plenty of talking time. I only muted the guy once throughout the course of the entire debate on my channel, and I'm the one with bad faith.
I feel like that guy was probably dog whistling.
This is a guy who claimed that I was dog whistling throughout the course of the criminal justice portion of the debate, despite the fact that during the debate he claimed that the 72% of out-of-wedlock births in the black community are due to the fact that black fathers are being over-incarcerated. Now, if you believe that 72% or anywhere near that number of black fathers are criminals or have been arrested, convicted, and sent to jail, I don't know what to tell you. You're not anywhere connected to reality. I don't say that because I know for a fact that the criminal population in any ethnic group is relatively small, but I was the one that was dog whistling during that conversation. He also claimed that black people have brain damage due to lead poisoning, and that explains their criminality. So for some reason, it's better to claim that a large swath, way larger than the population of people who are actually incarcerated, are incarcerated of this ethnic group, and that of those people, they have brain damage, than to say that they are agents and responsible for their own actions.
I don't think systemic poverty leads to an incentivized to commit sexual assault at the rates that sexual assault is being committed in the black community.
Like, sure it does. Yeah, 100%. Absolutely, yeah. Because if you're poor, you're more likely to have a poor upbringing, which means there's more likely to be lead in the paint of your walls, which means it's more likely that you didn't have both parents around to raise you. These are all comorbid with antisocial personality disorder.
Therefore, you commit sexual assault more because you had lead paint in your walls?
Being raised poorly and having brain damage? Yeah, 100%.
That's not a dog whistle, but me saying that they're agents and responsible for their own actions, that's the dog whistle. Now, there was one point later in the debate that I wish I would have clarified a little bit better, because what ended up happening was Vaush slipped a gigantic lie by me, and I made my same argument without clarifying that he was in fact wrong, and that was in the puberty blockers section of the debate when we were talking about the decrease in bone density from puberty blockers. Now, there was a study that showed that estrogen offset some of the decline in bone density for transgender people, and that's because estrogen preserves bone density, it doesn't decrease it. Vaush was trying to make the point that you didn't need to check the people who went on them and went off them, their bone density, because according to him, you already have this comparison group between transgenders who transitioned with and without puberty blockers. Now, that was probably the most unproductive of all the unproductive points in that conversation, but you can tell when I'm arguing for data on kids who go with the puberty blockers but don't end up transitioning, that's what I'm looking for. But since that point is not clarified, it appears like we're arguing in circles and arguing semantics. Now, all in all, this was not a productive conversation, and that's because it's impossible to have a productive conversation when neither party is expecting one to happen, and one party, which is Vaush, let me make this clear, had no intention of even trying to have a productive conversation. This dude just wants to generate attention for himself because he is serving a market. Again, nothing wrong with it. We're all capitalists here, even the ones that pretend to be communists. So it's fine. He's serving his fan base, and his fan base are a bunch of losers that like watching him own content creators by talking really fast, despite the fact that all that fast talk is full of made up overlong words that don't really mean anything. Now, a lot of people commended me on my patience throughout the course of the debate, and while I appreciate the kind words, in reality, I'm just a calm person. I'm not somebody who's going to be this faux internet tough guy in order to generate a hate mob in my audience. That's Vaush's stick. We all know Vaush would never talk to anybody like that in real life, but that's his shtick online. Also, Vaush wants you to get angry with him. He wants you to get into a shouting match with him. He wants you to lose your cool so he can have a moment on the internet. It makes him infinitely more angry when you don't feed into that and remain calm. So not only was it in my line of personality, but it was also the exact opposite of what he wanted, so it was fun and enjoyable to let him freak out and not get what he was looking for out of that freak out. Now, as for would I do it again? Probably not. While it was a giant moneymaker and it got a lot more attention from my channel, I got more subscribers, followers, revenue, and it seems like wins all around, in reality, the guy doesn't know anything, and anything he's not prepared for, he can't tell you the basics of in a conversation. He can't tell you the basics of stuff that he did prepare for. But look at the conversation very briefly that we had on healthcare, where I just asked him to name one metric where the NHS is better than the United States healthcare system.
Do you want to do this for the next debate? I'm not going off into this. This is literally one of the most well-argued points. Nobody defends the American healthcare system.
Nobody defends it. It's a well-argued point. Yeah.
I know that you just want to keep talking forever, but this would be like an insane waste of time. We can get to it the next time, I guess.
Insane waste of time, but I'm curious if this is like, it's a well-argued point. Is that like your stance? That's it? It's
well, considering I don't have any data in front of me, I'd have to review it.
Well, I'm just asking for one example of outcomes.
The standard lefty response to that most of them can give you instantly is access, but Vaush couldn't do that. All he could do, because he's 5 years old, is demand a metric where the US healthcare system is better, which I produced immediately.
Okay, wait, let me flip the script. In what example of outcomes does the United States on average do better?
We have in terms of cancer survival rate, I think it's after 5 years. Like the United States has a higher 5-year cancer survival rate.
So yeah, there's really not that much more to say. The debate is up in full on my channel. You can watch it if you're interested. I'll link it in the description box of this video. It will be linked in the iCard somewhere in the video. Check it out if you're interested in seeing it. But don't expect to have your mind blown or changed by any of the information presented, because in reality, these aren't meant to do anything but galvanize the fan bases and generate hype. But hey, maybe you think something different from me. That would make you wrong, but maybe you think it. So let me know your wrong opinions down in the comments below. If you like this video, show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, you know where the support links are, and, you know, till next time.